Hi folks, glad you can join us again. What I'm doing today is I'm going to have a look at these carburetors and I want to give them a clean down. They're from a lad who lives nearby. He's got a bobber and it's based on a Suzuki GS550. It's not running right, difficult starting and that. So what I did the other day, I went down, had a look, checked his bike over. Compression was alright, the ignition needed the points adjusting and that, so got a decent spark. It's funny, the spark on the plugs when I first started, it was yellow, it wasn't a blue spark, and I'm surprised it was sparking at all because the points were barely opening. Anyhow, got them sorted and then it still wouldn't start very well or run. Would only really start if we put a bit of fuel down inside the carburetors and it would run for a little while. So what I did, I went back with a set of carbs I've got a GS550 and that's for another project I'm going to make in the future, cafe racer I'm hoping to make out of it. So I cleaned them carbs, took them down and we tried them on his bike and it started up fine, running sweet as a nut. I think the only little problem I had was one of the carbs, the float was jamming in it, so I'll have to have another look at that. So what I'm going to do today is strip these down and try and clean out all of the airways and the fuel ways, see if we can get these running a lot better. I watched Craig Jones and a couple of other people on YouTube, great guys, and I'd like to say what they say all the time is that this is not a how to do video. This is not how saying that you should do it. This is just the way I do it, and it seems to work. If you like the techniques I use, then feel free to use them. If you don't, then do it your own way. I'm not that keen on carb cleaner. I tend to use just something like WD-40, or I've got this other maintenance sprays to clean them out, because when you clean them out you want to dissolve all the crud and things like that in, and I get the impression that carb cleaners will evaporate too quick without penetrating it, or if you don't wipe it away quick enough it'll just be hardening the crud in there. So I tend to use things like that. It keeps everything sort of moist so you can wipe it away whenever you get round to it. So I'm going to start by having a look at these carbs. Right, so these are his carbs, and say compared with mine, they seem a lot cleaner from the outside. This bar's not as rusted and things like that, but mine have been cleaned inside, which is maybe what these need doing. Now, first thing before I take them apart is the slides. Just check that if you're doing yours, just check that they are moving, none of them sticking. And also on these, some carbs work different ways. So sometimes you've got to suck or blow. On these you've got to blow into these and it lifts the slide up, and then it should go down slowly, a bit like it's going down there. It doesn't drop down, it go down gently. So if I just put that pipe on there and blow in, you can see it lifts. So it shows that the diaphragms in here could be in good condition, so that's one thing. So just going to take the tops off these and then take the diaphragms out and slides and just give them a quick check over. So that's the first thing. Now when you take these off, that's what you should have, the caps there, have a spring inside, and just check that it's not all twisted or bent, damaged in any way. And then we've got the diaphragm here. Be very careful of the diaphragms. I think I was looking at one of these on eBay, and for that it was something like £150, so be very gentle with them. So you just check there's no splits in it, everything looks alright there. Put them somewhere safe. Right, so looking in there, everything looks okay. So I'll just take the tops off the rest of them. Right, I've got all 4 of those off. I've checked over the diaphragms, they're all okay, and cleaned them down. Next thing, well, I was looking at this, and if you look through these you'll not be able to see, but the butterflies, show you that side, butterflies are almost close. They should be just cracked open just a little bit to let some air through for the tick over, and these 2 are wider. That one's closed a little bit and that one's closed altogether. So if that one's closed, it's not going to give any air through for its tick over. So they're going to need balancing. So I'll do that when I put them back together. I'll try balancing them off the bike. If not, I've got some gauges and I'll balance them while they're on the bike. Now, next thing is, let's see, I'm going to take all the chokes out. These are the 4 chokes here. They've got a plunger in there, and they let extra air and fuel in when it's cold. So first of all, they're joined by a rod. There's a metal rod runs along and they all work together. So we've got to take these 4 screws out and try and get the rod out, so that we can have a look at each one. We'll take them out and see if there's anything blocked in there. Right, I've slacked these 3 screws off. This one's been stubborn, so I'm going to unscrew the choke out of here and take it off, and then we'll try to release it once we get it out and maybe put it in the vise. So that's it. That rod should come out now. Right, so that's all the chokes out of there now. So we'll take all them out, and then while we're here as well on the top, I'm going to take out all the idle mixture screws. So idle or air mixture screws, whatever they happen to be called. Now on here, got to be careful because there's, it hasn't came out, but there's a spring. There's a steel washer, a stainless steel washer, and a rubber washer goes on the end of these, so I'll have to dig all them out. So I'm going to do that with all 4. So what I've done is I've got the 4 adjustment screws out. Show you one of those. You see it's got the spring on, there's a metal washer, then the rubber washer on top. Now I was going to take all the chokes out, but so I've took the rod out that joins them together and the 4 brackets. The only trouble is, to get those out of here, I've got to split the 4 carbs. And it's not too bad of a job. You just take the screws out front and back on these reels and you can pull them apart. The only trouble is, in between the carbs here, it's got little connectors joining the fuel reel that goes in. And if I separate those, there's a good chance I'm going to get one of these leaking, and I'm going to have to search around for a repair kit. And we're trying to just give it a clean without going to all that expense. So I'm going to leave it as it is, and it's not a problem because it can flush fuel and air down here out the 4 to make sure that's clear. Next thing in here, there's 2 other holes. So that one was for the diaphragm to lift the slides. There's 2 here. Now I forget which way around they are, but they're for the ones for the feeds the main jet, air going into that, and the other one feeds the idle, and one of them also does the choke. Maybe that one for the choke. So one thing is to take these jets out of here and just make sure that there's no blockages there. We'll take them out all together while we're cleaning out as well. Nice little jet, a little bit like a main jet type of thing. Anyway, so take all 4 of those out, and then I'm gonna, let's see, we'll take the float balls off next. So there's just a load of screws in here to take them off, so I'm just going to take them off. Right, so I've got the float balls off. Only 3 of them have got these original black gaskets on. There's one of them there got a paper gasket on, so it must have had some damage before when somebody's took it apart. I'm going to take these gaskets off here because there's a channel along here which I'll show you, and also I'm going to have to take out the main jet. And there's something unusual in these carbs. They've got this rubber bung in here and the idle jet is in there, so the fuel has actually got to go through the main jet, then across and through the pilot jet, which is, you know, very strange, I think, but that's where they are. So get on with those. The float balls, if you look, aren't too bad, but they have got a little bit of crud in there, so I'll be spraying a bit of stuff in each one of these and using a bit of a scotch pad just to clean them out, make sure you get all that out. You don't want anything left inside, because if it does come loose at any point it's going to go into your jets, so it's best to get them cleaned up. And so to get the gaskets up, if you can get one that's up a little bit, and just use a feeler gauge, fairly thin, and just go around and try prising it up, then it should come up. Got to be very careful, we don't want to split these. Seems to be coming though. Right, that's it. So we'll need to clean this gasket off. There's also, so that's the channel I was on about, and it goes down here, and you can see on the outside there's a channel like a pipe goes down, and then it goes off that way, which is that little hole there. So we've got to make sure that's free, so I'll be spraying it, cleaning it out, but also you can see there, there's something coming out the bottom there. But what I tend to use is so this part of my carb cleaning kit. A little bit of copper wire. If you get a strand of that, and just try pushing it down to the bottom, you can scrape the sides, going through that one, and just check all of that, clean it out. So I'll be doing it a bit more, and also give these gaskets a good wash down, because along that strip there is where the air will be going, or the fuel will be going, down there, up there, along there, and then it will go into the carb somewhere, and it's into this little, that little pipe's one of them. I think that holds the other one, so we're going to have to make sure all those are clean. The float balls, now another piece of pipe. So these pieces of pipe got a tape on one end to remind us on which end to put in my mouth and which end is going to be covered in fuel. But if you put those down pipes like this, or over the top of that one, and blow down it, you can check that these are clear, or if they're blocked at all. So in here that's clear there. So we've got the main jets on top of here and the pilot jets in there, so I'm going to take those off, and also the float balls where these are the floats. Now let's see if I can get a piece of pipe to fit on there, so that's a little bit bigger diameter than these I've got, and I don't think that's going to be small enough. No, let's get a piece of bigger pipe. Right, so I've got a bigger piece of pipe onto here. Now, to check that the valves are closing properly on the float bowls. If I blow into there shouldn't be anything coming out at the minute. The carbs are upside down. But then if I lift one of these, and I lift them in turn, you should hear a hiss as the air's coming out. And then as I close it should stop. That one seems okay. I don't know if you could hear that. It's okay. That one's taking a bit of blowing to get it to open, so I might have a little bit of muck around that. Right, so they all seem to be closing okay. It's just funny, there must be some muck in the system somewhere, because when it was on the bike, these two, there was fuel overflowing out of here. It may just be one of them, because they're actually joined together by a little link pipe going to an overflow, so it could have been filling one up and then going through the overflow pipe in the other one. So anyway, I'm going to strip all those valves out of there and we'll see what's like. Right, I've stripped the jets and everything out of those three. I was just going to show you with this end one here I've been doing. So first thing is the main jet, and if we remove that, so I'm just checking to make sure it's clear and there's no muck in there at all. Now in there is the tube, I think it's called a emulsifier tube. It looks a little bit tarnished, corroded, but it's got a lot of holes in there. About 5 of them either side, four sets of 5 all the way around, and just checking that there's no muck inside of that, so that seems alright. I'll just check the number on it. Yeah, just checking to see it's the same in all 4, make sure there's nothing silly like that. Right, the pilot jet, just take that out next. So the main thing is with this is that the holes are clear. It's a little bit corroded. The 6 holes around the outside, got to make sure that they're clear, and it looks like they are. I don't know about the one in the end. No, that one looks a little bit blocked. There's one in the end there, so a little bit of copper wire. Now I know some people frown on cleaning these out with wire, but I was actually surprised. There was somebody on TV who was cleaning them out and he used some wire, and I was surprised he actually did. But I tend to use copper wire rather than a steel wire or anything, because copper is softer than the brass, and if there's anything going to wear, it's going to be the copper's going to wear first. Right, so that's clear. Just put it down there, make sure there's no bits of muck in there. Yeah, that's okay. I will wash these out as well with some maintenance spray before I put it back together. Right, so that's those jets out. The float bowl, now when the float has got to come off, so there's a pin through it. And when you take these out, just check. I always check to make sure there's no damage on them. There's no fluid inside of it, because if it's filled up with petrol, it's not going to raise, it's going to remain open. With the ones on the bobber there, I had little brass ones and they were actually punctured, and I had to solder them up. Right, next thing, the float jet is in here. It looks in fairly good condition. I'm just looking down there. Everything looks alright. Now with these, the jet seats actually come out, they're held in with a screw. So I'm just trying to get this screwed. So that should now pull out. Wasn't too tight, but not bad, that one. And there is some bits of muck around this little gauze filter, so it's caught the big bits. I'll give that a wash out. Now I can see there's some bits of muck down here. And that's part of the channel which is going to get washed out. I don't know if my hands are that dirty, you might not make it out, but there's little bits of muck in here. That's what's inside the fuel rail along here. So apart from these here, I'll get one of the others, the rubbers have hardened a bit and have squashed up. I'll put that into there. It's very wobbly, it's slack, it's not held in by any friction which you would get off a rubber. This one at least you need to push it in, so it's getting some friction, but these rubbers must be getting worn out and need replacing. The thing is, the fuel's supposed to come up through the centre, and the valve which goes inside of there is preventing the fuel from coming up. Well, if these aren't sealing properly, then what's going to happen is that the fuel is going to come around the outside of that, so that it'll still fill up even though the valve's closed. So that's not so good on them, so that needs addressing. So I'm going to see if I can get some of these rubbers or kits for an overhaul kit, but the kits do tend to be expensive. Right, so next thing, going to have to clean around these. I don't know if you can make out, but there's a lot of sort of like corrosion around these, around the top, which is fairly loose, and the danger is that that'll fall off with fuel getting washed about, and may wash it off, end up in the float bowl, and it might get sucked into the into one of the jets. So the next thing is try to clean out all the little holes. As I was saying, one of these, like so that one which had the jet in, I can see it goes along here, and it does actually go to the pilot jet, that one. Now it may also go up somewhere else. On this side I can see it goes through the housing here, and that one goes to the main jet, so I'm going to have to make sure that they're clear. The one going to the pilot jet also, you can see, goes along this side, and it goes up here and out through that way, so that goes to that pilot jet there. So I'm going to have to make sure that that channel's free. There's also, let's see, it's probably from this little jet here. I'll have to check that that's clear, and it looks like that goes up and to the choke, so I'm going to have to check that the choke is free by pulling this open and then making sure we can get some fluid flowing through there. Now the needles, there's also where the needle jets go for the little needle jets for the idle, the air mixture screws, they go down into the main body, and I can see by looking through there, I can see that there is daylight showing, but again they're going to get washed out. There's also in here, in the top of here, around about where the butterflies are, in here, there's tiny little holes in there, so they go into some airway somewhere. I'll have to find out where they go to and make sure they're clear as well. So there's a lot of airways in there, got to make sure that they're all clear, and that's where I suspect is the problem in here. That's one of them. The flooding of the carburettors could be due to the rubbers, which I was saying on these valve seats. You know, these here, that if they oops, put it in the wrong way. If they're letting fuel past, it could cause the fuel overflow. because these two were getting fuel overflowing. So I'm going to get on and try to clean all them out and see how I get on. Now the way I tend to check that some of these are clear is using a little piece of pipe like this. Let's see, that one fit over there. And then blow through it, and I can hear that air is going through it, and then try to find out where it's coming out of. Right, and when I'm blowing through this one, it's actually got a valve at the bottom, so I take it, the bottom one's for fuel, and there's a tiny little hole in the side there for air. When I'm blowing through there, and I hear it coming out of here, if I push the pipe right down, it's no longer coming out. But if I pull the choke open, I can hear it going through as I open and close it. So I'll check the other three and make sure that they're the same. Right, I've got them as clean as I can. I've used sort of sprays to spray through all the fuel and airways, and I've cleaned them out by blowing air through them. I've washed out the fuel rail as well, so everything's out there. Right, we'll start assembling them, and start with the bottom here. So I'm doing this one first. Let's see what we're doing here. Now I'm not going to fully assemble it. I'm not going to put the floats in because these float valve seats, this rubber around there, we need some new ones of those, so I'm going to try and order those. So I can't put those in. We've got the pilot jet, pop that in. There's the rubber bung that goes on top of it. Right, there's the little jet that goes on the inlet here. Again, it's been cleaned out, everything's fine. Now we need this jet in here, and as you can see round the top here, it's got quite a large hole there. Now that lines up, goes on this side to line up with the pilot jet. So that's going that way. And it's also got a groove in here, so it will only fit in one way. So I'll try and put that into place. Yep, so that's gone in there. I'm just keeping that in place with my finger there. There's a brass washer, and then there's the main jet goes on top of there. Right, so that's all I'm doing there for now. The top, so the slide, so the hole goes to the inlet side, or the engine side should I say, and I've got to make sure that notch fits into there. Spring goes in, and then top goes on, and that just goes, make sure that the springs around that. Right, next the pilot mixture screws got to go in. Now it's got a little rubber on to seal it. It's got a washer and then the spring, so we've got to make sure that they're all on there properly. The rubber tends to hold them all in place. Now when you put it in, you've got to put it in gentle, take it all the way down till it seats right. And then in the book it's normally recommended how far out to take it. Now I know the ones on mine worked and they were 2 turns out, so I'm taking that 2 turns out. Right, so until we get them seals for the float seats, that's all I can do at the moment on there. Nearly forgot, we've still got the choke to connect up again. So let's see, these screw in there. These have got to go on each of the chokes, and then this bar's got to slide through. As we pushed along, we've got to put each one on in order. So the second one has got the like a lug on it, and that's to connect to the lever on the cable. Right, now what we've got to do is a little countersink in each of these, and that's where the screw's got to connect to. So I've got to try to get lined up. Let's say the cable, there's a little split pin in this. Two little washers there. Now this has got to go into one of these, this one here I think. Yeah. So I'll just take the screw out of there. All the washers on. Slide it through the hole. Screw on this side to hold the bracket. And then we'll try and get the washer on this side. And the split pin. It, and then bend the legs over. Right, that's it. So now the choke should work. Yep. Right, lovely. Right, so that's as much as we can get on with today until we get the rubbers for the float valve seats. So I'll leave it there for today. Right, so yesterday the little seals, the O-rings came, which I was after. I'll have a look at them in a minute. But I've also been shopping as well, so I'll just bring you over here to show you. Now if you remember the other week I was trying to do my son's crank, balancing that, but we didn't have a press. And the shop we went to, the original one, they couldn't get it in their jig. Anyway, so being out, and I went and bought myself a little press. So hopefully I'll be able to do the cranks, and it's got this plate with it, which seems to be able to fit a crank into it, so we can separate them. So I'll give that a try next time we need to. So back on with the carbs then. So as I said, these seals came and they're made of Viton, which is supposed to be one of the best ones you can get for petrol. Now I've already done one, but you can see around here they've got a little rubber O-ring around these valve seats, so you've got to try and get that out first. awkward to get out, because they have gone a little bit, yeah, it's just falling to pieces. They've gone a little bit hard. Been seeing reports about the new fuel with 10% ethanol, I think it is, which is not supposed to be very kind to not just rubbers and that and carburettors, but actually aluminium as well. So people have been recommending stay away from normal unleaded and go for the super unleaded, which has still only got, you know, less than 5% ethanol in. Not sure how much it's got in, but seems the best one to go for. Right, so let's clean that up. So taking one of them off the seal and just try and stretch it over. It's on there, and when you put it into here, it should be a snug fit. And there's no play or movement in that one like there was in these originally. I'll show you how one they are on this one. Put that in there and you lift it out and it just falls out. So it's got no contact at all around there to seal it. So anyway, I'll change those other two. Right, I've got those for now. Next thing, there's a little retaining clip which holds the float jet in place, so I'll just put them on there, a little screw to hold it in with. Then the float jet can go in, and just check it's got a little rod that sticks out of their end and it should be spring loaded. So pop that in, and the float goes on. And we've got to put these pins in. Right, so that's it. Now the next thing is to check the float height. So when we check it, we're going from the base there to the height of the float. Right, and that is 22.8. Then the book says 22.4, I think it is, plus or minus 1mm. So it's well within the limits. So now what I'll do is I'll do the same with the other three and get them all at the same stage. Right, so I've got all four built. I've checked the heights on them all, they're all within the limits. I've connected a piece of pipe to the fuel rail which goes in. And what should happen, so the thing I always check on carbs, is that when it's in that position, the floats should all be closed. So if I blow on this, there shouldn't be any air flowing through, but as I lift one in turn, you should hear it, the air come out, and then as I release it, it should stop again. So I'll just check all four of those. Right, they all seem to be working okay. So what I'll do now is I'll just put the float balls back on and screw them in place. Right, so they're all assembled, and if I hold them up and blow through the pipe, should be able to blow through. Yeah, and if I turn them upside down, simulate the floats being closed. Yeah, nothing, so that's fine. So next stage I'm going to get some petrol and a little tank, and we'll try feeding it into it, let the balls fill up, and then make sure that make sure the float valves are closing and that we don't get fuel coming out the overflows. Right, so I've got the carburettors just in the dish there, saving the petrol that might spill. I've got to connect it up to me little temporary reservoir tank, and balls have filled up now, and you can see there's no leaks coming out of there, so that's a good result. So Next thing is to take these across to Stuart's garage and we'll get them fitted onto his bike. Right, so we're over at Stuart's and see we've got his bobber here. Got the carbs, I'm just going to fit them. Okay, so I'm going to get on with that. Right, so that's it. Stuart's carbs are working well. The mixture's good. When we checked it with the fuel air mixture gauge, it's running nice and smooth, ticking over fine. It does, on the video you might find it sounds a little bit rough when it's running, but one of the exhaust gaskets is blown a little bit, so it doesn't sound as good as when you're actually there listening to the bike. It's running really sweet. He was looking in a way that he has had the carbs looked down. Somebody did put some larger jets on the main jets, which helped it run well, but we did have to tweak the air mixture screws just to get it running right at tick over. Well, Stuart's really happy because he's been fiddling on for 2 or 3 years trying to get running well, and he hasn't managed it, but he's really happy with it the way it is now. Anyway, so that's it for 1 week. So thanks again for watching, guys, and until I see you next time, stay safe.